The call came at 3:15 a.m. on a Tuesday. I wasn't in bed. I was already up sitting at my kitchen table staring at a cold cup of coffee and wondering how everything had gone so wrong. When the phone rang, I knew it would be bad news. It was my brother Jake, his voice shaking as he told me our mother Linda was in the hospital after a heart attack. As I rushed to grab my keys, my eyes landed on the keys to my brand new Ford pickup truck sitting in the driveway. The same truck that had started the biggest family war of my life just 3 weeks ago. I never imagined that buying my dream vehicle would tear apart everything I thought I knew about the people I loved most. Looking back now, I should have seen the warning signs. But 3 weeks earlier, all I could think about was finally getting a reliable work truck. My name is Buster, and I'd been working double shifts at Henderson Construction for 8 months straight, saving every penny I could scrape together. My old Honda sedan was falling apart faster than I could fix it. The transmission was slipping, the air conditioning had died in July, and the engine made sounds that reminded me of a dying animal. Worst of all, it was costing me job opportunities. When you work construction, having a dependable truck isn't just convenient. It's essential for hauling tools, materials, and getting to remote job sites. My wife Sarah had been supportive initially, or at least that's what I believed. She would pack me extra lunches when I worked those long days, and she even suggested I skip our usual weekend dinners out to save money faster. Our 2 teenagers, Tommy, who was 17, and Emma, who was 15, seemed excited about Dad finally getting his dream truck. Tommy would joke about borrowing it when he got his license, and Emma said her friends would think it was cool to get rides in a real pickup truck. The opportunity came on a humid Thursday afternoon when my coworker Daniel mentioned seeing a pristine 2020 Ford F-150 at Drew's Auto Sales on Highway 47. Daniel said the price seemed too good to be true, only $12,000 for a truck that should have cost at least $20,000. My curiosity got the better of me, so I drove over during my lunch break to take a look. The truck was everything I had dreamed about. Metallic blue paint that gleamed in the sunlight, barely 20,000 miles on the odometer, leather seats that still smelled new, and a powerful V8 engine that purged like a contented cat. When I popped the hood, everything looked perfect. No rust, no wear, no signs of abuse or neglect. The interior was immaculate, and when I turned the key, it started immediately with a smooth, confident rumble. Drew Patterson, the lot owner, was a friendly guy in his 50s with graying hair and a genuine smile. He explained that the previous owner had died unexpectedly, and his family just wanted the truck gone as quickly as possible. They weren't interested in haggling or waiting for the perfect buyer. They needed the space in their garage and wanted to settle the estate. Drew seemed almost apologetic about the low price, admitting he usually charged more. But the family had insisted on a quick sale. I called Sarah from the lot to discuss it, and she sounded enthusiastic over the phone. She said if I had been working this hard for 8 months and had saved the money legitimately, then I deserved to treat myself to something nice. Her encouragement gave me the confidence to move forward. I used my entire savings of $10,000 plus a small $2,000 loan from my credit union to buy the truck that afternoon. Driving home, I felt like I had won the lottery. The truck handled beautifully, the air conditioning worked perfectly, and I could already imagine how much easier my work would become. I pictured loading lumber and tools without worrying about scratching up a car's interior, driving to job sites without anxiety about breaking down, and finally having a vehicle that matched my profession and personality. When I pulled into our driveway, I expected celebration. Instead, Sarah walked out of the house with an expression I had never seen before. Ice-cold fury mixed with something that looked like betrayal. Her face was pale, except for 2 bright red spots on her cheeks, and her hands were clenched into fists at her sides. "What exactly do you think you're doing, Buster?" she asked in a voice so quiet it was more terrifying than if she had screamed. I explained about the great deal, how much money I had saved, how this would help my career, and make our family's life easier. Sarah listened without interrupting her expression, growing darker with every word. When I finished, she was silent for a long moment before dropping a bombshell that left me speechless. "I had planned to use that money for Tommy's college fund," she said. "I already promised him we would pay for early admission to Westfield Academy. The application deadline is next week, and the deposit alone is $15,000. This was the first time I had ever heard about Westfield Academy, or any plan to send Tommy to an expensive private school. We had always discussed community college or state universities as realistic options for our family's budget. Sarah had never mentioned having $12,000 earmarked for education, and we certainly had never agreed on spending $15,000 for college deposits. Tommy came outside during our conversation and immediately joined Sarah's attack. He called me selfish and irresponsible, saying I cared more about looking cool than investing in his future. His words stung because I had always tried to be a good father, working extra hours to provide for our family's needs. Emma appeared next and sided with her mother, suggesting that maybe I should have asked the family before making such a big decision. The situation got worse when my brother Jake arrived for our weekly family dinner. Instead of admiring the truck or congratulating me on finding a good deal, Jake immediately launched into a lecture about financial priorities and family responsibilities. He suggested that buying the truck showed poor judgment and implied that I was going through some kind of midlife crisis. The climactic twist came when Sarah revealed that she had already promised Tommy the money for early college admission to Westfield Academy without ever discussing it with me. She had been planning to present this as a done deal, expecting me to simply agree and find a way to make it work financially. According to Sarah, my truck purchase had ruined everything and made her look like a liar to our son. As I stood in my own driveway, surrounded by family members who were treating me like I had committed a crime, I began to feel the first stirrings of confusion and discomfort. This wasn't the reaction I had expected, and something about their coordinated anger seemed strange. But I pushed those feelings aside, assuming I had simply misunderstood our family's financial priorities. The argument about the truck spiraled into massive family confrontations that revealed much deeper issues than I had ever suspected. What started as a disagreement about money quickly became an all-out war with battle lines drawn and allies chosen. The intensity of everyone's reaction seemed disproportionate to the actual situation, but I couldn't yet understand why. Sarah gave me the silent treatment for days, communicating only through curt notes left on the kitchen counter about household logistics. When I tried to initiate conversations about compromise or solutions, she would walk away without responding. The cold atmosphere in our house became so thick you could cut it with a knife. Tommy brought his girlfriend Ashley over for dinner on Friday and spent the entire meal loudly complaining about his selfish father, who had destroyed his college dreams. He made sure Ashley heard every detail about how I had chosen a truck over his education, painting me as an irresponsible parent who couldn't be trusted with family decisions. Ashley looked uncomfortable during these attacks, but Tommy seemed determined to humiliate me in front of her. Emma started staying at her friend Jessica's house most evenings to avoid the tension at home. When she was around, she acted distant and disappointed, sighing dramatically whenever she saw me. She stopped asking for help with homework and declined my offers to drive her places, preferring to get rides from friends' parents instead. My mother, Linda, arrived unannounced on Saturday morning and immediately sided with Sarah without even hearing my perspective. Linda suggested that I should sell the truck immediately and put family first, like a responsible husband and father should. She reminisced about my father's financial mistakes during my childhood, drawing parallels between his poor decisions and my truck purchase. According to Linda, I was repeating patterns of selfishness that had caused problems in previous generations. The situation escalated further when my father-in-law, Ray, showed up on Sunday afternoon. Ray was a retired banker who had always intimidated me with his stern demeanor and judgmental comments about my blue-collar career. He lectured me about financial responsibility for over an hour, suggesting that construction workers shouldn't make major purchases without consulting more educated family members. Ray threatened to involve himself in our marriage if I didn't fix this mess immediately. Jake kept calling throughout the week with increasingly harsh criticism. He suggested that I was having some kind of mental breakdown and needed professional help to understand why I had made such a destructive decision. Jake recommended that I see a financial counselor and possibly a therapist to address what he called my impulse control issues. His concern felt more like an attack than genuine brotherly support. The stress began affecting my work performance. My co-workers at Henderson Construction noticed that I seemed distracted and exhausted. When they asked about my new truck, I found myself making excuses and deflecting questions instead of proudly showing it off like I had planned. The joy of the purchase had been completely overshadowed by the family conflict. During one particularly heated argument, Sarah accused me of being just like my irresponsible father, who had supposedly made similar selfish decisions during my childhood. This comparison felt like a low blow because my father had worked hard to provide for our family even if he hadn't always made perfect financial choices. Sarah seemed to be using my family history as ammunition against me. Linda shared embarrassing stories about my childhood mistakes in front of Tommy and Emma, supposedly to illustrate patterns of poor judgment that she claimed I had never outgrown. She told them about times I had broken things or made bad decisions as a 10-year-old, as if those incidents were relevant to my adult choice to buy a work truck. These stories made me feel small and foolish in front of my own children. Ray's threats to involve himself in our marriage felt particularly ominous. He spoke about financial abuse and suggested that Sarah might need protection from my reckless spending habits. His language made it sound like I was some kind of dangerous person who couldn't be trusted with money or family decisions. Tommy started acting out at school, using the family conflict as an excuse for poor grades and behavioral problems. His teachers called to express concern about his sudden change in attitude and academic performance. When I tried to address these issues with Tommy directly, he blamed everything on the stress I had caused by buying the truck. The climactic twist of this period came when I discovered that Sarah had been meeting secretly with a divorce lawyer for the past 6 months, long before the truck purchase ever happened. I found business cards and legal documents hidden in her purse when I was looking for aspirin to treat a stress headache. The papers included consultation notes about divorce proceedings, asset division, and child custody arrangements. This discovery hit me like a physical blow. Sarah had been planning to leave our marriage for months, completely independent of any truck-related issues. The family's coordinated anger about my purchase suddenly made more sense. They weren't really upset about the money or the truck. They were supporting Sarah's predetermined plan to end our marriage, and my truck purchase had simply given them a convenient excuse to justify their position. As I held those legal documents in my shaking hands, I realized that the pain and heartbreak I was feeling came from a much deeper betrayal than a simple disagreement about family finances. My wife had been planning to destroy our life together, and apparently everyone except me had known about it. The discovery of those divorce documents changed everything for me. Instead of continuing to defend my truck purchase or trying to appease angry family members, I decided to investigate what was really happening behind the scenes. The more I dug, the more I realized that I had been living in a carefully constructed lie. I started by secretly following Sarah on Tuesday morning when she said she was going grocery shopping. Instead of heading to the supermarket, she drove directly to the law offices of Marcus and Associates downtown. I waited in the parking lot across the street and watched through binoculars as she spent 2 hours in what appeared to be an intense meeting with attorney Marcus Thornfield. When Sarah finally emerged from the building, she looked satisfied and confident in a way I hadn't seen in months. She carried a thick manila folder and stopped to make several phone calls before getting back in her car. I followed at a distance as she drove to a coffee shop where she met with someone I didn't recognize, a man in his 30s with dark hair and an expensive suit. That evening, I confronted Marcus directly. I showed up at his office during lunch and demanded to know what kind of legal services he was providing to my wife. Marcus initially tried to hide behind attorney-client privilege, but when I threatened to file complaints with the State Bar Association, he became more cooperative. Marcus reluctantly revealed that Sarah had been planning to file for divorce and was building a case to claim that I was financially irresponsible and potentially dangerous. According to Marcus, Sarah had been documenting every purchase I made, every decision I made, and every conversation we had for months. She was creating a portfolio of evidence to use against me in divorce proceedings and custody hearings. The scope of Sarah's documentation shocked me. She had been taking photographs of my tools scattered in the garage, my work clothes left on the bedroom floor, and even my coffee cups left on kitchen counters. She had been recording our conversations without my knowledge and keeping detailed notes about my daily activities, work schedules, and social interactions. I realized that the family's anger about the truck wasn't spontaneous or genuine. It was orchestrated as part of Sarah's legal strategy. Everyone had been coached to react with outrage and disappointment, creating a narrative that I was selfish, impulsive, and unfit to be trusted with family responsibilities or child custody. Marcus admitted that he felt uncomfortable with some aspects of Sarah's approach, but she was paying him substantial fees, and he needed the income for his struggling practice. He revealed that Sarah had been extremely thorough in her planning, consulting with financial advisors, child psychologists, and even private investigators to build the strongest possible case. My investigation into our joint bank accounts revealed even more disturbing information. Sarah had been secretly transferring money into accounts that I didn't know existed. Small amounts at first, $50 here, $100 there, but over 6 months it added up to several $1,000s that had been quietly moved beyond my reach. I discovered that my father-in-law, Ray, had been advising Sarah on how to hide assets and manipulate financial records to support her claims of my irresponsibility. Ray's banking background made him an expert in moving money in ways that would be difficult to trace or challenge in court. His lectures about my financial judgment were actually reconnaissance missions to gather information for Sarah's legal team. Jake's role in the conspiracy became clear when I found text messages on Sarah's phone discussing strategies for documenting my poor decisions and erratic behavior. Jake had been helping by keeping detailed records of our conversations, my work habits, and even my social media activity. His calls weren't motivated by brotherly concern. They were fishing expeditions designed to provoke reactions that could be used against me. The manipulation extended to my children as well. Emma had been reporting back to Sarah about my conversations' moods and activities. She had been encouraged to notice and remember every time I seemed stressed, tired, or frustrated, so that Sarah could document these moments as evidence of instability or poor parenting. Tommy's sudden interest in expensive college wasn't genuine. Sarah had planted that idea to create a financial crisis that would make my truck purchase seem even more selfish and destructive. The Westfield Academy story was completely fabricated. Tommy actually preferred the idea of community college and had never expressed interest in elite private education. The climactic twist of my investigation came when I realized that the truck purchase itself had been a setup. I returned to Drew's auto sales to ask more questions about how he had acquired the vehicle and why the price had been so attractive. After some persistent questioning, Drew admitted something that left me speechless. Drew Patterson was Sarah's cousin. They had deliberately offered me an irresistible deal on the truck, knowing that I would use my savings to buy it. The plan was to give me an opportunity to make a selfish purchase that they could use against me in divorce proceedings. The low price wasn't because of a family estate sale. It was because Sarah and her allies needed me to take the bait. The truck had been specifically chosen and priced to drain my savings account and create the exact family crisis that I was now living through. Every aspect of the purchase, from the timing to the financing to the family's reactions, had been carefully orchestrated to support Sarah's legal strategy. As I sat in my truck outside Drew's lot processing this information, I felt a combination of rage and devastation that was unlike anything I had ever experienced. My entire family had been working together to destroy me, using my own dreams and desires as weapons against my future. The betrayal went so much deeper than I had imagined, and I realized that everything I thought I knew about my family relationships had been built on lies. Armed with the knowledge that my truck purchase had been a deliberate trap, I decided to dig deeper into the full scope of my family's conspiracy against me. What I discovered over the next few days made the truck setup look like child's play compared to the elaborate deception that had been unfolding for years. I confronted Drew directly about his family relationship with Sarah and demanded the complete truth about their plan. Drew initially tried to deny any connection, but when I threatened to report the fraudulent sale to the Better Business Bureau and state automotive regulatory agencies, he became cooperative. The revelation that followed changed my understanding of everything. Drew revealed that Sarah had been planning this truck setup for months, waiting for the right moment when I would have enough money saved to take the bait. They had been monitoring my work schedule, my overtime hours, and even my conversations about wanting a reliable truck. Sarah had specifically requested a Ford F-150 because she knew it was my dream vehicle, the one purchase I wouldn't be able to resist if the price was right. The conspiracy went much deeper than financial manipulation. Drew told me that Sarah had been having an affair with her coworker, Brandon Mills, for over a year. Brandon was a divorced father of two who worked in the accounting department at Sarah's insurance company. The affair had started as emotional support during what Sarah described as her unhappy marriage, but had quickly become a full-blown romantic relationship with plans for a future together. Sarah's divorce planning had begun when she decided she wanted to be with Brandon permanently. Everything that had happened since then, the family meetings, the financial documentation, the truck setup, was designed to create legal justification for leaving our marriage while maintaining custody of the children and securing the maximum financial settlement possible. I discovered that Sarah had been poisoning our children against me gradually over many months. She would make subtle comments about my work habits, my spending priorities, and my family commitments that slowly undermined their respect and affection for me. Emma's reports about my activities weren't just recent. She had been encouraged to spy on me for almost a year. Linda's role in the conspiracy was more extensive than I had realized. She had been spreading rumors about me throughout our neighborhood, and extended family suggesting that I was unreliable, financially irresponsible, and possibly emotionally unstable. Linda told neighbors that she was worried about Sarah and the children, and hinted that my behavior had become concerning. These rumors had real consequences. I discovered that some of my neighbors had been avoiding me for months because of Linda's gossip. The parents of Emma's friends had been questioning whether their daughters should spend time at our house. Even some of my coworkers had heard secondhand comments about my supposed problems at home. Ray's financial manipulation was far more sophisticated than simple account transfers. He had been helping Sarah establish credit lines and bank accounts in her name, only preparing for the day when she would leave our marriage. Ray had used his banking connections to ensure that Sarah would have immediate access to funds and credit that would be beyond my reach or knowledge. Jake's participation in the conspiracy included not just documenting my activities, but actively sabotaging my relationships with other family members. He had been telling our extended family that I was going through some kind of midlife crisis, and that they should be careful about trusting my judgment or getting too involved in my problems. The financial fraud extended beyond hidden bank accounts. I discovered that Sarah had been forging my signature on several documents, including insurance policy changes and investment account modifications. She had altered our life insurance. Beneficiaries changed the terms of our retirement accounts and even applied for credit cards in both our names without my knowledge. The college fund story that had triggered the truck crisis was completely fictional. Not only had there never been any money set aside for Tommy's education, But Sarah had actually spent our genuine savings on trips and gifts for Brandon. Hotel receipts and restaurant bills showed that Sarah had been using our family money to finance her affair for months. Emma's coaching had been more extensive than simple spying. Sarah had been teaching her daughter to notice and report signs of my stress, fatigue, or frustration, so that these normal human emotions could be documented as evidence of instability or poor parenting. Emma had been given specific instructions about what behaviors to watch for and how to describe them in ways that would sound concerning to child welfare authorities. Tommy's confusion about college had been deliberate. Sarah had filled his head with unrealistic expectations about expensive private schools, knowing that we couldn't afford them, so that my truck purchase would seem even more destructive to his future. Tommy had been manipulated into believing that his father cared more about trucks than education, when the reality was that his mother had been lying to him about our family's financial capabilities. The most devastating discovery came when I realized that the 3:15 a.m. phone call about Linda's heart attack was completely fake. This was the final phase of their plan to get me out of the house so that Sarah could file restraining orders and change the locks. Linda was in perfect health, and they were using a fabricated emergency to manipulate me one last time. I confirmed this by calling the hospital where Linda was supposedly being treated. The admissions department had no record of any patient by her name. When I called Linda's house directly, she answered the phone in perfect health, clearly surprised to hear from me and confused about why I was asking about hospitals. The fake emergency was designed to get me to leave the house in an emotional state, ideally, without thinking clearly about my actions or legal rights. Once I was gone, Sarah planned to claim that I had abandoned the family home and was acting erratically. She would then file for emergency protective orders based on her months of documented evidence about my supposedly concerning behavior. The truck keys, sitting on my kitchen table at 3:15 a.m., represented the final piece of their trap. They wanted me to drive to the hospital in an emotional state, potentially speeding or driving carelessly, so that any police interaction could be added to their documentation of my poor judgment and instability. As I processed the full scope of this betrayal sitting alone in my kitchen, while my family believed I was rushing to a fake emergency, I realized that everyone I had trusted most in the world had been systematically destroying my life for their own benefit. The truck hadn't cost me my family. It had revealed that the family I thought I had never actually existed. Instead of falling for the fake emergency call, I decided to stay home and observe what would happen next. I turned off all the lights in the house, parked my truck around the corner, and positioned myself where I could watch our driveway and front door without being seen. What unfolded over the next few hours confirmed my worst suspicions about the scope of their conspiracy. At 4:30 a.m., exactly 75 minutes after Jake's fake phone call, I watched Sarah arrive at our house with Brandon. They were followed by a moving truck and 2 additional vehicles carrying Jake, Ray, Linda, and several people I didn't recognize. Linda looked perfectly healthy as she directed the operation from our front lawn, clearly suffering from no heart attack or medical emergency whatsoever. The group worked quickly and efficiently to remove belongings from our house. Sarah had prepared detailed lists of what to take, and everyone seemed to know exactly what their role was in the operation. They loaded furniture, electronics, personal items, and financial documents into the moving truck, while Linda kept watch for neighbors or any sign that I might return unexpectedly. Brandon appeared comfortable and familiar with our house layout, confirming that he had been there before as part of Sarah's affair. He knew where to find specific items and seemed to have detailed knowledge of our family's belongings and financial assets. His involvement wasn't recent. He had clearly been part of Sarah's life and plans for a significant period. Jake's role as the fake caller became obvious as I watched him coordinate communications between the various family members. He was using his phone to provide updates about timing and logistics, ensuring that everyone stayed on schedule for what was clearly a carefully planned operation. His concern about Linda's health had been pure theater designed to get me away from the house. The efficiency of their work suggested extensive preparation. They had predetermined what items to take, where those items were located, and how to transport everything quickly. This wasn't a spontaneous decision made in response to a family emergency. It was the execution of a plan that had been developed over weeks or months. Around 6 a.m., as the moving truck was being loaded with the last items, Sarah made several phone calls that I could partially overhear from my hiding spot. She was speaking to what sounded like legal professionals, law enforcement contacts, and possibly social services representatives. The tone of these conversations suggested that she was implementing the next phase of her plan to isolate me legally and socially. I realized that if I had fallen for the fake emergency and driven to the hospital, I would have returned home to find the house emptied, the locks changed, and possibly police officers waiting with restraining orders based on Sarah's fabricated evidence of my dangerous behavior. My absence during the house clearing would have been used as proof that I had abandoned my family in a time of crisis. Instead of confronting them directly, I contacted Holly Martinez, a private investigator whose business card I had found in a phone book. Holly specialized in domestic cases involving fraud, adultery, and child custody disputes. When I explained my situation, she immediately understood the legal implications and agreed to help me document the ongoing conspiracy. Holly brought professional photography equipment and helped me gather evidence of the family's illegal activities from a safe distance. We documented the coordinated moving operation, photographed the participants, and recorded license plate numbers of all vehicles involved. This evidence would be crucial for proving that Sarah's claims about my behavior were fabricated. Holly's experience with similar cases helped me understand that my truck purchase had accidentally disrupted Sarah's carefully planned timeline. They had needed me to deplete my savings gradually so that Sarah could maintain financial control during the divorce proceedings. My sudden purchase of the truck had forced them to accelerate their plans before they could properly cover their tracks. The truck's value had created another unexpected problem for their scheme. Holly helped me research the vehicle's actual worth and discovered that I had genuinely gotten an excellent deal even though the sale had been orchestrated as a trap. The truck was worth at least $18,000, meaning that my $12,000 purchase had actually increased our family's net worth rather than damaging it. Holly revealed that she was also a licensed attorney who specialized in cases involving domestic fraud and parental alienation. Her legal expertise would be invaluable in challenging Sarah's claims and protecting my rights as both a husband and father. She explained that many of the actions I had witnessed were actually criminal offenses that could result in serious legal consequences for the participants. During our investigation, we discovered that Sarah's company had been conducting an internal audit of their accounting department due to irregularities in financial records. Brandon's involvement in both the audit and the affair created a potential scandal that neither he nor Sarah could afford to have exposed. Their timeline for leaving town had been driven partly by the need to escape before the investigation concluded. The most shocking discovery came when Holly helped me search the truck more thoroughly for any evidence of its previous ownership. Hidden in a secret compartment behind the glove box, we found a collection of documents and computer files that had belonged to the truck's previous owner, Robert Chen, who had been a private investigator. Robert Chen hadn't died of natural causes, as Drew had claimed. He had been investigating embezzlement at Sarah's insurance company when his truck had been involved in a suspicious single-vehicle accident. The files hidden in the truck contained evidence that Sarah had been stealing from her employer for years, manipulating client accounts and insurance payouts for personal gain. The embezzlement scheme involved millions of dollars and multiple victims who had been shortchanged on legitimate insurance claims. Sarah hadn't just been planning to divorce me and start a new life with Brandon. She had been planning to flee the country with stolen money. The truck purchase had accidentally prevented their escape because it forced them to accelerate their timeline before they could complete the embezzlement and cover their tracks properly. Robert Chen's investigation files contained bank records, email communications, and financial documents that proved Sarah's criminal activity extended far beyond marital fraud. She had been running a sophisticated embezzlement operation that had been stealing from insurance claim recipients for over 3 years. As Holly and I reviewed these files, I realized that my selfish truck purchase had actually saved me from being implicated in Sarah's crimes. If their original timeline had proceeded smoothly, I would have been left holding responsibility for debts and legal problems that I knew nothing about. The truck had accidentally interrupted their plans and provided me with evidence that would clear my name and protect my future. Sitting in my truck with Holly as we documented the truth about my family's betrayal, I began to feel something I hadn't experienced in weeks: hope. For the first time since this nightmare began, I had allies' evidence and a plan to fight back against the people who had been trying to destroy my life. With Holly's help and Robert Chen's hidden evidence, I launched a carefully planned counterattack that systematically exposed each family member's illegal activities and turned their own conspiracy against them. The transformation from victim to strategic fighter felt like waking up from a nightmare into a world where justice was actually possible. Early Monday morning, Holly and I presented our evidence to Detective Rachel Warren at the Metro Police Department. Detective Warren specialized in white-collar crimes and domestic fraud cases. When she reviewed Robert Chen's files and the documentation we had gathered, her expression grew increasingly serious. She immediately opened investigations into Sarah's embezzlement, the conspiracy to commit fraud against me, and the suspicious circumstances surrounding Robert Chen's death. The evidence against Sarah was overwhelming. Robert Chen's files contained bank records showing systematic theft from insurance claims, email communications, proving coordination with Brandon to manipulate accounting records, and financial documents demonstrating years of embezzlement totaling over $2.7 million. Detective Warren confirmed that Robert Chen's death was being reclassified as a possible homicide related to his investigation. Holly helped me file criminal charges against Ray for conspiracy financial fraud and identity theft related to his assistance with Sarah's hidden bank accounts and forged documents. Ray's banking background had made him an expert accomplice, but it also meant he could face professional sanctions and criminal penalties that would destroy his reputation and financial security. Jake faced charges for filing false police reports, participating in conspiracy and identity theft related to his role in documenting my activities and providing false information to support Sarah's fabricated claims. His fake emergency call about Linda's heart attack was treated as a criminal offense involving false reporting and conspiracy to commit fraud. Linda was charged with filing false police reports, conspiracy, and defamation related to her spreading of malicious rumors about me throughout our neighborhood and extended family. Her participation in the fake emergency call and the house clearing operation made her a co-conspirator in multiple criminal offenses. The most satisfying part of the counterattack was watching Sarah's reaction when police officers arrived at our house with arrest warrants. She had returned from the fake emergency expecting to find me either absent or distraught, ready to be manipulated into accepting whatever legal papers her attorney had prepared. Instead, she found Detective Warren and 2 uniformed officers waiting with evidence of her crimes. Sarah's confidence crumbled immediately when she realized that I knew about the embezzlement, the truck set up the affair with Brandon, and the complete scope of her conspiracy. She tried to maintain her victim narrative, claiming that she had been forced into desperate actions by my abusive behavior. But the evidence against her was too comprehensive to deny. I had secretly recorded conversations with family members where they admitted details of their planning and coordination. Holly had helped me install legal recording equipment that captured Linda's boasting about the success of their manipulation, Jake's descriptions of his intelligence-gathering activities, and Ray's detailed explanations of his financial fraud techniques. The recordings were devastating because they proved premeditation and coordination among all the conspirators. These weren't spontaneous reactions to my truck purchase. They were calculated criminal actions that had been planned and executed with malicious intent to destroy my life and steal my assets. Marcus Thornfield, the attorney who had been helping Sarah plan her fraudulent divorce, faced professional misconduct charges and potential disbarment for participating in criminal conspiracy and knowingly filing false legal documents. The State Bar Association took his case very seriously because it involved multiple violations of professional ethics and legal standards. Brandon's involvement in both the affair and the embezzlement scheme cost him his job immediately when his employer learned about the criminal investigation. His participation in manipulating accounting records made him a co-conspirator in the embezzlement, and his affair with Sarah compromised his professional integrity. He faced both criminal charges and civil lawsuits from the insurance company's victims. The impact on my children was initially difficult, but ultimately positive. Tommy was shocked to learn the truth about his mother's manipulation and the fabricated college fund story. When he realized that Sarah had been lying to him about our family's finances and his father's priorities, he felt angry and betrayed. Tommy apologized to me sincerely and asked if he could continue living with me rather than following Sarah. Emma's reaction was more complex because she had been more deeply involved in the spying and reporting activities. She felt guilty about her participation, but also relieved to learn that her uncomfortable feelings about the situation had been justified. Emma explained that she had been scared of her mother's anger and felt pressured to cooperate with activities that made her uncomfortable. Both children chose to undergo counseling to help them process the psychological manipulation they had experienced. The therapist confirmed that Sarah's behavior had constituted emotional abuse and parental alienation, systematic attempts to damage the children's relationship with their father through lies and manipulation. My coworkers at Henderson Construction rallied around me when they learned about the conspiracy and the criminal charges. Several of them provided character testimony for the legal proceedings, confirming that my work performance and behavior had been consistently professional and reliable. Their support helped counter Sarah's fabricated claims about my instability and poor judgment. The extended family members who had been influenced by Linda's rumors felt embarrassed and apologetic when they learned the truth. Several relatives called to express regret about their distant behavior and to offer support during the legal proceedings. The family relationships that had been damaged by Linda's lies were gradually rebuilt based on honest communication. Drew's cooperation with the police investigation helped reduce his potential charges, but he still faced penalties for his role in the truck setup conspiracy. His admission that he had participated in fraudulent sales practices damaged his business reputation and resulted in regulatory sanctions against his auto dealership. The climactic twist of my counterattack came when Detective Warren's investigation revealed that Sarah's embezzlement scheme had involved forging insurance documents and creating fake claims that had cheated legitimate victims out of hundreds of thousands of dollars. These victims included elderly retirees, disabled individuals, and families who had suffered genuine losses and deserved the insurance payouts that Sarah had stolen. Sarah's crimes weren't just financial. They had caused real human suffering by denying insurance money to people who desperately needed it for medical bills, home repairs, and basic survival expenses. The scope of her heartless theft made her betrayal of our family seem like a minor offense compared to the damage she had inflicted on innocent strangers. The evidence also revealed that Sarah and Brandon had been planning to flee the country with the stolen money, leaving me to face legal responsibility for debts and problems I knew nothing about. My truck purchase had accidentally saved me from being implicated in crimes that could have destroyed my life, even if I had eventually been cleared of wrongdoing. As I watched the legal system methodically dismantle the conspiracy that had been built against me, I felt a deep satisfaction that went beyond personal vindication. Justice was being served, not just for me, but for all the innocent people who had been harmed by Sarah's greed and cruelty. 6 months after that horrible 3:15 a.m. phone call, I found myself driving my truck to work on a beautiful spring morning with my son Tommy in the passenger seat, heading to his community college classes. The radio played classic country music as we discussed Tommy's plans to study automotive repair, a career choice he had made independently once the pressure and manipulation stopped. The legal consequences for all the conspirators had been swift and comprehensive. Sarah received 5 years in federal prison for embezzlement, conspiracy, and fraud charges. The judge had been particularly harsh in sentencing because of the number of innocent victims who had been cheated out of legitimate insurance claims. Sarah's theft had denied medical payments to cancer patients, disaster relief funds to storm victims, and disability benefits to injured workers. Ray received 3 years in federal prison for his role in the financial conspiracy and money laundering operation. His banking license was permanently revoked, and his reputation in the financial community was completely destroyed. The detailed records he had kept of his illegal activities made prosecution straightforward and conviction inevitable. Jake was sentenced to 2 years probation and 400 hours of community service for his role in filing false reports and participating in the conspiracy. He was required to make a public apology and pay restitution for the investigative resources wasted on his fake emergency call. The humiliation of his conviction damaged his standing in our extended family and professional community. Linda faced 18 months probation and substantial fines for her role in filing false police reports and spreading defamatory rumors. She was required to publicly retract her statements about me and send written apologies to all the neighbors and family members she had lied to. The judge ordered her to attend counseling for what the court identified as malicious gossip and harassment behaviors. Marcus Thornfield was disbarred and faced 3 years probation for professional misconduct and conspiracy charges. His law practice collapsed when other clients learned about his willingness to participate in fraudulent schemes, and several former clients sued him for malpractice. His career and reputation were permanently destroyed. Brandon received 4 years in prison for embezzlement and conspiracy charges related to his role in manipulating insurance company records. He lost his accounting certification, his job, and faced massive civil lawsuits from the insurance company and its victims. His participation in the scheme while conducting an affair with Sarah made his betrayal particularly damaging to his professional and personal reputation. Drew faced regulatory sanctions and fines for his role in the truck setup, but his cooperation with the investigation helped minimize his criminal charges. His auto dealership never recovered from the scandal, and he eventually closed the business and moved to another state to start over. The recovery process for Tommy and Emma involved extensive counseling to help them understand and heal from the psychological manipulation they had experienced. Dr. Patricia Williams, their therapist, confirmed that Sarah's behavior had constituted systematic emotional abuse designed to alienate the children from their father and manipulate them into supporting her criminal activities. Tommy thrived once the pressure and lies stopped influencing his decisions. He realized that he had never actually wanted to attend an expensive private college, that pressure had come entirely from Sarah's fabricated expectations. Community college suited his learning style and career interests much better, and he was genuinely excited about studying automotive technology and repair. Emma required more time to rebuild our relationship because her involvement in the spying activities had created deeper guilt and confusion. With Dr. Williams's help, Emma came to understand that she had been a victim of manipulation, rather than a willing participant in betraying her father. She gradually became comfortable with honest communication and began to trust that family relationships should be based on love rather than fear. The financial recovery exceeded my expectations in several ways. The truck that had supposedly cost me everything turned out to be worth significantly more than I had paid for it. When I had it professionally appraised, The value came in at $21,000, meaning my $12,000 purchase had actually increased our family's assets by $9,000. Robert Chen's family, grateful for the evidence that helped solve his murder case, declined any claim to the truck or the investigative files. They confirmed that Robert would have wanted his evidence to help protect another innocent family from the kind of criminals he had been investigating. The truck became legally and permanently mine, along with a clear conscience about how I had acquired it. My relationship with Holly Martinez evolved from professional to personal as we worked together through the legal proceedings. Holly's intelligence, integrity, and genuine care for justice made her an ideal partner for rebuilding a life based on honest relationships. We took our time getting to know each other without the pressure of rebound romance or legal complications. The construction work that I had been worried about losing during the family crisis actually improved significantly once the sabotage and stress stopped affecting my performance. My supervisors at Henderson Construction offered me a promotion to crew leader, recognizing reliability and dedication that had been undermined by the conspiracy but never actually damaged. The truck became a symbol of liberation rather than selfishness. Every morning when I started the engine, I remembered that this vehicle had accidentally saved me from years of continued theft, manipulation, and abuse. If I had never made that purchase, Sarah's scheme would have continued until she had stolen even more money and destroyed even more lives. The insurance company victims who had been cheated by Sarah's embezzlement received full restitution through the criminal restitution process and civil settlements. Many of them sent letters thanking me for accidentally uncovering the scheme that had stolen their legitimate benefits. These families had suffered real hardship because of Sarah's greed, and knowing they were being made whole helped heal my own sense of justice. Tommy's relationship with automotive repair created an unexpected bonding opportunity. He often rode with me to work sites where he could observe construction equipment and vehicle maintenance procedures. Our conversations during these drives helped rebuild the father-son relationship that Sarah's manipulation had tried to destroy. Emma discovered talents and interests that had been suppressed during the years of family manipulation and stress. She began writing poetry and short stories that processed her experiences with family trauma and recovery. Her writing showed emotional intelligence and resilience that impressed her teachers and counselors. My extended family relationships healed gradually as relatives learned the truth about Linda's lies and manipulation. Several family members apologized for their distant behavior and expressed regret about believing rumors without investigating the facts. These reconciliations were based on honest communication and mutual respect rather than fear and manipulation. The neighborhood relationships damaged by Linda's gossip campaign were rebuilt through patient, consistent demonstration of good character and community involvement. Neighbors who had been avoiding me began to appreciate my reliability, work ethic, and genuine care for the community. The contrast between Linda's lies and my actual behavior became obvious over time. Dr. Williams helped me understand that the most important lesson from this experience was learning to trust my own judgment and instincts rather than accepting guilt and manipulation from people who claimed to love me. The family members who had participated in the conspiracy had been using emotional manipulation and guilt as weapons against my independence and happiness. The legal vindication was satisfying, but the personal growth and authentic relationships that emerged from the crisis were more valuable than any court judgment. Learning to recognize manipulation, stand up for myself, and build relationships based on mutual respect and honesty gave me tools for creating a genuinely happy life. Looking back, I realized that my truck purchase had been the best financial decision I had ever made, not because of the vehicle's value, but because it revealed the truth about my family situation and gave me the courage to fight for something better. The price I paid was my entire fake family, but what I gained was freedom, authentic relationships, and peace of mind. The morning sunshine streaming through the truck's windshield felt like a blessing as Tommy and I discussed his upcoming automotive technology projects. This was the family relationship I had always wanted. honest communication, mutual respect, and genuine affection based on who we really were, rather than who we were supposed to pretend to be. My new truck had cost me my entire family, and it had been the bargain of a lifetime. Sometimes the most expensive price you can pay is staying in relationships that cost you your peace, dignity, and future. Sometimes losing everything fake is the only way to gain something real. The truck's engine purred smoothly as we headed toward Tommy's college and my job site, two destinations that represented hope, growth, and authentic success. The radio played a classic song about freedom and new beginnings, and for the first time in years, I felt completely at peace with my life and optimistic about the future. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between keeping the peace and standing up for what you knew was right? Sometimes our biggest mistakes turn out to be our greatest blessings in disguise. I would love to hear about your experiences with family conflicts or times when following your instincts led to unexpected positive changes in your life. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to my channel for more stories about overcoming betrayal and finding authentic happiness. Share this with anyone who might benefit from hearing about how standing up for yourself can lead to genuine freedom and peace. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it encourages you to trust your own judgment and never settle for relationships that require you to sacrifice your dignity and happiness.